And I believe this problem is behind us. Of course, there are other problems. We will always have racial extremists and something new, religious extremists or fundamentalists or whatever you would like to call them. And they are not going to go away, but although they act in undercover and secretive ways, they lack that organizational capacity to build up a system underground that can demolish the machinery of state and take over. So they are not quite the same threat. Therefore, I feel sanguine enough to say that never a better set of conditions for open democratic politics, because there's no need for united front politics. There's no need for manipulation behind the scenes of committees, of non-political organizations, and getting them to go political, joining the fray. It's what they did. They worked on Old Boys Association, chambers of commerce, musical associations, and they get them to issue all kinds of innocent statements on the surface, but actually designed to foster a particular issue and to agitate. So when an English-educated group tried the same technique and moved into Christian Students' Union or Catholic Students' Union and got them to go political, and moved into the Law Society and got the Law Society to take the government on, I think that was just stupidity. It's exactly what the communists get. It's exactly what we are not going to allow, and nobody is going to tell me that that's innocent democratic practices. There is nothing to forbid anybody from nailing his colors to the mast, and indeed it's the safest way to do it. Nail your colors to the mast, defend it, and say, this is my flag, this is what I believe in. I believe in open debate, argument, suasion. I hope to win by votes. But start manipulating innocent professional groups, cultural groups, and make them support political causes, whether it's freedom of the foreign press or whatever, then I say you are looking for a very unpleasant linkages with what has happened in the past. All that should be over and done with, because the CPM has packed up its armed struggle, and there's nothing to prevent anybody from forming any party to advocate any kind of ism. If they find it unprofitable to propagate communism, then they can, like the Eastern European communists, they now call themselves democratic socialists. Well, do so, but do it openly. And I am encouraged also because I see more and more people write letters to the press and sign their names. That's a good sign, a good tendency. To run a democratic system, you must have democratic impulses in the people. There must be the cultural basis for that system. It's not just having a constitution and saying, well, there you are, the system is democratic. The British gave 40+ constitutions around the world. I only know of one that's worked without major alterations, and that's in Barbados. Small community, homogeneous, self-governing assembly or legislature for over 100 years. Mainly black, a few mixed, whites, blacks, and some whites. Every other country has had major problems. Sri Lanka, the ideal, when the model of how democracy should work when I was a student in England in the 1940s. You've seen it come a cropper. It'll never go back to what it was. when Pakistan was going to hold elections after General Zia died in the air crash, I read an article by the professor of political science of London University called Ali Kaduri. And he wrote a half-page article in the Sunday Telegraph, which I circulated to my cabinet colleagues, why democracy will not work in Pakistan. Sunday Telegraph is the only newspaper that published that. But this was an academic, and he gave the historic reasons that this is a deeply divided society. There are several different groups in different provinces. The fact that they are all Muslims doesn't mean that they are one nation. Furthermore, there is not a free, open society. It is a very hierarchical, almost feudal in their relationships between landlord and farmers, or peasant farmers, or peasant workers. Less than 2 years, I'm sorry to see it's come to grief. But I think in Singapore we stand a chance of making the one-man, one-vote system work with amendments, as we have done, like GRCs, three-in-one constituency with one minority to be included. We need that to make it work. And I believe with pragmatic adjustments, given these more favorable conditions, we can have more open debate. But do not allow, and I've told this to my younger colleagues, never let any underground group ever take roots again. Utter stupidity, because it's such a tremendous waste of resources in the special branch and then the ISD to go in underground with them and to ferret them out. And you can never clean them up, because if you clean them up totally, then you can't follow them into new branches. So you always clean up, but leave enough behind so that you are with them to go into the next channel. So I have often asked my ISD and special branch officers, I said, then there's no end to this story. So they said, well, that is so, sir. Now, the nature of the problems we are going to meet, which is what Goh Chok Tong and his team will face, will be very different. Because the situation is changing very radically, and we need fast responses, flexible responses. We must change policies to meet changing situations. But changing policies does not always mean we change direction or objectives. You may have to change the route, but if you want to get there, 1999, and reach that kind of state, when you change policy, don't change direction. And they have not done so. It's like graduate mothers, you see. So giving them preference for their children in school became very unpopular and very objectionable. So do we change? All right, we concede. But the principle is to get more educated women to have more children. And that has not changed. And family allowances have been given, income tax relief, not family allowances, but income tax relief, which means it's all fair in accordance with what you pay the government. And if you don't pay, then obviously you can't afford to be given a relief. So in that way, they have been able to get their objectives. And that's intelligent changing of policy in order to get the same objective. And they have to do that in an ever-changing environment. Because technology is changing rapidly, which means new products, new services, new lifestyles. And in a shrinking world, interdependency becomes more acute. Acute is perhaps the wrong adjective, because if the world gets nasty and protectionist, then it's acute, but if it gets cooperative, then it becomes much more favorable for everybody. It's a plus for trade, for technology and capital and people to move freely across boundaries, which means better tourism, but it also means global problems, more global problems, like AIDS. You can't stop it at any border. This immune syndrome, drugs, the greenhouse effect. These are all now global problems. We have to anticipate them, we have to adjust to them, we have to look at how we will fit into this new world. And specifically, if we look at our region, the prospects are promising. Thailand, Malaysia, Indonesia, they are going to take off. If they have not already taken off, I think Thailand and Malaysia are already taking off. Indonesia will take off quite quickly. They have adapted their policies. Japanese investments are moving in force. Americans are also moving in. We've got to persuade the Europeans to come in. In another 10 years, we will not get workers from Malaysia or Thailand. In another 15, 20 years, no more from Indonesia. We may have to go to Burma, Sri Lanka, because I don't think their problems are going to go away that easily. And so it will be a very different Southeast Asia, especially if the Indo-Chinese countries also, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, join the growth group. And with growth, mutual growth, there will be less frictions. And we can help it by encouraging cross-investments. You know, taking stakes in each other's economy. We should think of ways and means so that when we grow, they gain. It's like a linkage between SIA and Swiss Air and Delta Airlines. They took 5% stake in each other to show a commitment. You make a profit, I'm sharing in that profit. I make a profit, your assets and your dividends grow. Some schemes can be devised to bring this about. The GIC, for instance, Government Investment Corporation, already has plans. This is new, but we are going to put our money where our mouth is. We believe these countries are going to grow, and we are going to invest in the stock market. Definitely Malaysia. Perhaps when the market goes down further, we'll buy more. Because we think it's going to go up. Eventually, when the crisis in the Gulf is over. Thailand, Indonesia. Now, with this climate of cooperation in ASEAN, especially between our two immediate neighbors, Malaysia and Indonesia, investor confidence will increase, and the rate of investments into all three will also increase. It's taken 25 years, but we have the beginnings of a sound relationship, good relations with both Malaysia and Indonesia.